Welcome to the new video on organizing work. In our previous chapter, we have discussed the 5 basic management functions: planning, organizing, staffing, leading, and controlling. We discussed in great detail about planning and strategic management in the previous video. Today, let us discuss in great detail about the organizing work. Let me begin this video with an inspiring quote from Benjamin Franklin. Every minute spent on organizing is just like earning an hour. Let us discuss why organizing is important. Organizing establishes the line of authority. That means people will come to know who is responsible to whom. It creates synergism, which improves efficiency and quality. 5 people working together produces amazing result compared to a single person working alone. That's the magic of organizing. It improves communication. It defines communication channel, which in turn saves your time. It leads to development of organization in a systematic manner. It avoids confusion and chaos in the day-to-day affairs of the organization. These are some of the objectives we are going to discuss in this video lesson. Number 1, difference between organizing and organization. Difference between formal organization and informal organization. Number 2, horizontal versus vertical organization. Some organizations follow vertical organization and some follow horizontal. What are the limitations of vertical organization and why horizontal organizational structure is most sought by large companies and its advantages? Number 3, power, authority and responsibility. Here we will discuss what do you mean by power, sources of power, what is authority, sources of authority, and how authority and responsibility is correlated. Number 4, we will discuss about the difference between centralization and decentralization. Why decentralization is preferred more in larger interest of the organization, that also we are going to discuss. Number 5, what is delegation? What is parity principle? Parity principle is related to delegation. And what is exception principle? These two principles are related to delegation. And we will also discuss why some managers are reluctant to delegate. Number 6, other organizing principles we are going to discuss, that is unity of command, that is no person can wear 2 hats at a time, scalar principle, that is about chain of command. Number 7, span of management. This is also principles of organizing. Span of management. It is also referred as span of control. And empowerment and powerlessness. Advantages of empowerment in an organization. The last objective we are going to discuss is how flexi-time, telecommuting, job sharing and work from home has made changes in the organization. Some people have little confusion about the difference between organization and organizing. Here we are discussing what do you mean by organization and what is organizing, and what is informal organization and formal organization. What is organization? Organization is a group of people working together in some concerted or coordinated effort to attain objectives. For that matter, bank is an organization, school, college, university is an organization, and all big and small companies are referred to as an organization. The single most important advantage of an organization is that it provides a vehicle for implementing strategy and accomplishing objectives that is not achievable by individual working separately. As we discussed, synergism, we will get the benefit of synergism in organization. All the registered or incorporated bodies such as banks, schools, colleges, small and big companies, we refer it as an formal organization. Within the formal organization exists informal organization. What is this informal organization? Informal organization are aggregates of personal contact and interactions and the associated grouping of people working within the formal organization. All unofficial groups are called as informal organization. All the teachers are making a social WhatsApp group is an example of informal organization. All the students together, they are making a WhatsApp group to help and understand the course mutually. It is also called as an informal organization. In every formal organization, you will find informal organization also. What is organizing? There is difference between organization and organizing. Organizing, it is an act of grouping of activities necessary to obtain common objectives and the assignment of each grouping to a manager with the authority to supervise people performing the activities. In organizing, what we do, we used to assign a manager for a specialized authority. For example, all finance activities will be grouped into one department and it will be assigned to the finance manager. All the operation activities will be grouped into the operation department and it will be assigned to the operation manager. All the HR activities starting from recruitment till hiring and firing will be assigned to the HR manager. That is organizing. To organize effectively, we need to know the principles of organizing. That's the reason you have to study this chapter in depth. To know the ins and outs of organizing, how we can do organizing in an effective manner, we need to know a variety of principles that is relating to this chapter, that we call it as principles of organizing. That is the reason why we have to study this chapter in great detail. Types of division of labor. Now we come to know what is organizing. Simply, organizing is an act of grouping of activities into homogeneous group and assigning each group to a manager. This we understood. This grouping of activities is also called as division of labor. Basically, organizing is nothing but division of labor. How we divide the labor? Basically, labor can be divided, employees can be divided into vertical organization, we call it as a tall organization, and horizontal division of labor, horizontal organization, we call it as a flat organization. What is vertical organization and what is horizontal organization? We need to discuss in great detail. We will discuss with sufficient what you call diagram also. Vertical organization is based on establishment of line of authority. Every manager is given certain authority. For example, HR manager has authority to promote, demote, terminate or approve increase in salary. That is the authority of a HR manager. So every manager used to have different authorities. Vertical organization, it defines the levels that the vertical organization structure is made up of. How many levels we can design in an organization? Some organizations used to have 3 levels, some organizations used to have 5 levels, some organizations we can have 5 to 15 levels of the managers. It facilitates the flow of communications. Sometimes we call it as a military organizations. The instructions flows from top to bottom in vertical organization. Horizontal division of labor, or sometimes we call it as a horizontal organization. It is based on specialization of work, such as dividing the labor. All IT people will work in IT department, all HR people will work in HR department, and all marketing people will work in marketing department. So this we can consider as an horizontal division of labor. Basic premise means this horizontal division of labor believes that more work can be provided with the same efforts through increased efficiency and quality due to task specialization. So everybody is highly specialized in horizontal organizations. For that reason, it is having a lot of benefits. One of the benefit is that it increased efficiency and quality due to task specialization. Look here, we have some of the diagrams. Vertical organization. In the vertical organization, you will find CEO, vice president, department head, division head, supervisor, and employees. Here, the instructions flow from top downward. Whereas in horizontal organization, VP marketing, within the VP marketing, you can have general manager sales, general manager marketing, general manager public relations. Let me illustrate the difference between vertical organization or vertical and horizontal division of labor in this way. All the proprietary company, single owner company, or small companies or medium companies used to have vertical division of labor. The owner act as a CEO and he used to take all decisions in operations, buying of machines and tools, hiring, firing, finance, budget, etc. Vertical organization, it is good for one man company, small companies or medium companies. Whereas horizontal division of labor exists in some companies such as General Motors, Toyota, and Tata group of companies. Most of the automobile companies, when they have new model of cars, CEO will not launch it, the dealer will launch it. So the dealers, they have the privilege to launch the new model of car. In vertical organization, anything new comes, the CEO used to announce. In case of iPhone, if the new model of iPhone is coming, CEO used to have public meeting and he used to demonstrate the new launch of the new version of the iPhone. Whereas in the automobile company, the CEO will not launch the new product because every year they have new products and the dealers are authorized to launch the product. Some of the benefits, advantages and disadvantages of vertical division of labor and horizontal division of labor you can understand with the help of this diagram. In 1927, T models of car produced by Ford was available everywhere, and in the same year General Motors, they produced different model. What happened in the vertical division of labor and what happened in the horizontal division of labor? Let us discuss the two examples of these Ford company and General Motor company. Not surprisingly, Ford Motor Company was a firm that was decades operated under a strict vertical hierarchy. Henry Ford dedicated that the company would sell only Model Ts, telling employees that customer could choose any color so long as it was black. He was not even ready to change the color, the CEO of Ford Motor Company. For the first half of the 20th century, vertical organization utilized a command and control project management style. That means what? Whatever CEO said, nobody can argue it. They have to follow. The research and development, maybe the needs of the customers, that was not having any say. That was about vertical division of labor. During the same period, General Motor was selling a nearly 1 out of every 2 cars in America. General Motor was ahead of Ford Car Company and Ford had dropped to a distant second. It is no exaggeration to say that when he essentially created the horizontal organization definition, General Motors, in doing so, created a management blueprint that has been replicated worldwide. General Motors was highly successful because they applied horizontal division of labor. When they applied horizontal division of labor, this blueprint, this model is accepted worldwide, and nowadays most of the automobile companies, whether it is Toyota, whether it is Nissan, whether it is General Motors, they believe in horizontal division of labor and they are adopting horizontal division of labor. There are many advantages. of horizontal division of labor and very few disadvantages. Let us discuss that one. Advantages of horizontal division of labor: fewer skills are required per person. An automobile assembly line, each labor is responsible for a single skill. Semi-finished car moves from one workstation to another workstation. Each person is fitting a specific part of the car. If you happen to see how the automobile industry working, just go and see the video how the assembly plant works, how the automobile industry works. You will find it is very interesting. In automobile industry and in the assembly line, each labor is responsible for a single skill. Semi-finished car moves from one workstation to another workstation and each person is fitting a specific part of the car. So every person needs fewer skills. Skills required for a selection or training purpose are easy to supply. New employees will be easily trained one-to-one basis by the old employees on the job training. Proficiency in the job develops through practice, because people are working the same type of work for many years. They used to have a lot of practice. More practice makes a person more perfect in the similar job. That is another advantage of horizontal division of labor. It promotes efficient use of each worker's skill. Each worker is master in his own trade. Concurrent operations are made possible. Simultaneous and parallel operations are possible. For example, there is a car company that is in Washington, D.C. and they want to have another company in North America in some other city. Just they have to transfer the highly skilled labor from one plant to the another plant. They can have parallel production in both the plant because they have adopted horizontal division of labor. Product conformity is increased when each piece is produced by the same person. There will be lesser number of rejections. These are the advantages. But there are certain disadvantages in horizontal division of labor. The single most disadvantage is job boredom and degradation of the employees. For example, if a person is doing the same type of job, maybe for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, he gets bored. That is the single most, what you call the disadvantage of horizontal division of labor. To avoid job boredom and degradation of the employees, we need to study about job scope and job depth. What is job scope and what is job depth? We need to know it, because to address one of the disadvantage of the horizontal division of labor. Let us see what is job scope and job depth. Job scope refers to the number of different types of operations performed on the job. Assembly workers, when they do repeated job frequently, like a security person sitting on the gate has to open and close the gate hundreds of times, it will result in job degradation. For example, security person in the security gate, what is his job? He has to open and close the door, the gate, maybe hundreds of times. Because of this, job has a very narrow scope. For that reason, there should be job rotation. These assembly workers work like a machine or robot without communicating with each other. The scope is very narrow. What is the solution? Job depth, that is the opposite of job scope, where an employee has freedom to plan and organize their own work at their own pace, and moves around and communicate as desired. A lack of job depth can result in job dissatisfaction and work avoidance. That is why when the scope is very narrow, we need to provide the employees, we need to provide the laborers job depth. In the job depth, the employee can move around and work. So if there is no job depth, what is happening? A lack of job depth can result in job dissatisfaction and work avoidance if there is a very narrow scope, which in turn can lead to absenteeism and tardiness. To understand organizing work in a proper manner, we need to know three most important organizing vocab. We use these vocab time and again, and its concepts with sufficient examples. That is power, authority, and responsibility. What is power? Power is the ability to influence, command, or apply force. Power is usually derived from the control of resources. If a person is controlling some resources, he is having power. If a person is controlling less resources, he is having less power. If a person is controlling more resources, he is having more power. A good example of controlling resources: if a person is the head of a company where 500 employees are there, he is controlling 500 employees. That is the power of that particular CEO. Maybe, for example, there is an organization where there are 10,000 employees, and this CEO is controlling 10,000 employees, human resource. It may be about human resource, it may be about equipments, it may be about plants, it may be about finance. That is the power. Sources of power: basically there are three sources of power. One is coercive power. A manager can force an employee to do a specific job by threatening. If a manager is getting the job by threatening the employees, we call it as a coercive power. That is the power they used to get. Then legitimate power. It comes with the position. Legitimate power comes with the position. If a manager is evaluating you annually, he has an official power to get the work done from you. Because he is evaluating, you have to listen to him 100%. Expert power. Some people, because of their experience and expertise, gain respect, and people will listen to them, and they will be controlling some people. That we call it as an expert power. Authority. Authority is power derived from the right that comes with a position and represents the legitimate exercise of power. Different levels of managers used to have different levels of authorities. When there is a position, you get certain authority, legitimate authority. Authority comes with the position. Sometimes power may not come with the position. For example, expert power. A person is highly experienced and he is expert in some of the field. People will go to him and people will listen to him and people will do the work as he likes. He is not a manager. He is a senior most guy in the organization. He is having expert power. Authority comes with the position. Power may be coming with position or may not be coming with position also. For example, in a family, father is having a power to control the family. He is not like a manager or something like that. Okay. Authority, it is a power derived from the rights that comes with a position and represents the legitimate exercise of power. Different levels of managers used to have different levels of authorities. How people used to get authorities? Good example of authority: ministers have authority for financial sanctions. All ministers, they have authority for their own ministry, and they used to sanction millions of dollars or reals. That is the authority of the minister. Board of directors have authority to approve packages of general managers and CEO. Board of directors are the people who have authority to sanction packages for general manager and CEO, even to appoint CEO also, and the managers of various level. Board of directors, they used to fix the packages of so many managers. That is the authority of the board of directors. And shareholders, they have the authority to elect directors. In the annual meeting, shareholders annual meeting, what they do, they used to terminate one of the director. They may extend the director's term, or they may appoint the new directors as proposed by the board of directors. So they have voting power. So that is the authority of the shareholders to appoint any director. Different levels of managers have different authorities, maybe for finance, maybe for personal, maybe for other resources. Responsibility. Responsibility is accountability for the attainment of objectives, the use of resources, and the adherence of organizational policy. Here, responsibility doesn't mean the job responsibility you will find in the job description. Job responsibility that is listed in the job description, that is different. A good example of responsibility here is that, for example, if there is a huge corruption in the Ministry of Labor, a labor minister should take his responsibility to punish the people and put the people in the jail. That is the responsibility of the labor minister. If he is not taking action, what he has to do? He has to resign from the post. That is also the case of any manager. For example, there is a bank manager, and in a particular branch, there is a fraud of millions of dollars. Who is responsible for that? Branch manager is responsible. He has to take the responsibility to recover the money. If he is not recovering the money, he has to resign. If he is not resigning, the bank will terminate him without any benefits. So, authority and responsibility coincide. When you have authority, you have some responsibilities. How it works? How the responsibility works? Once responsibility is accepted, performing assigned work becomes an obligation. When you have the authority, with authority you have certain responsibility. When you take the responsibility, you have to follow the responsibility. It is your obligation. That is the difference between power, authority, and responsibility. Now let us discuss about concept and scope of authority. With this diagram, you can make it understand in a very easy way how much scope of authority each and every position is having. Board of directors of the company, they have maximum authority. They can change the face of the company. They can fix the managerial compensation. They can terminate any managers also. They can hire managers. They can fire managers. Board of directors, they have maximum authority in the company. Next comes the CEO or president of the company. President of the company or CEO of the company is the totally responsible person for the whole affairs of the company. His authority is also equally good, wider. Then comes vice presidents, little bit lower authority compared to the president. General managers, lesser authority than the vice presidents. Divisional managers, lesser authority than the general managers. Department managers and branch managers. Supervisors. So look here how the authority is tapering. So in this diagram, you can easily understand the concept and scope of authority. Board of directors have maximum authorities. They are authorized to appoint president, CEO of the company, whereas CEO has the privilege of favoring vice president within the boundaries of policies. VPs have privilege to look after general managers, whereas general managers have authority on divisional managers to take any actions, and the process goes down till the supervisors. In turn, supervisors have authority on the ground level employees. Another important distinctions you need to know in organizing work, that is about centralizations versus decentralization. What is centralization and decentralization? Centralization, an organization is never totally centralized or decentralized. No organization is totally decentralized or no organization is totally decentralized. In some parts the organizations are centralized, in some parts or some departments it is decentralized. If you want to elaborate this, I can elaborate this also. Centralized, for example, transfers of the employees, it will be centralized by the head office. Whereas evaluation of the employees, that will be decentralized. Evaluation will be done by the immediate supervisors, immediate managers. Whereas as far as transfers and terminations are concerned, that authority will be resting with the top managers. Transfers and terminations is centralized, whereas evaluation of employees in a company, in most of the company, it is decentralized. It is done by the immediate managers. It's a good example for whether the organization is totally centralized or decentralized. Centralization, little authority is delegated to the levels of management. If it is totally centralized, lower level managers will have lesser authority. In decentralization, a great deal of authority is delegated to the lower level of management. Decentralization is having more benefits. Advantages, it allows more flexibility. It allows quicker action and decisions in their own domain. It relieves employees from time consuming work, because for everything they should not go to the top level managers. It has having one specific disadvantage, potential loss of control. Sometimes the top managers, they may not control the lowest level of managers. Look here, with this diagram you can understand scope of centralization. In the first diagram, board of directors, presidents, vice presidents, general managers, branch managers, supervisors, employees. Here bottom level employees, they don't have any authorities in centralization. Whereas in decentralization, if you focus on the next diagram in this slide, you will find even the employees are also having certain authorities. Employees also have been delegated with certain authorities. They are independent. They can take some decisions within their own domain. In most of the universities and colleges, the teaching staff, they have authority within their own domain, within their own area. That is decentralized in case of what you call universities and colleges. The professors of the department, they have the authority to give grades to the people who are doing research and development. Research, you know, the research scholars will be under the head of the department. This head of the department is having authority to evaluate those research fellows. That is a good example of decentralization at the bottom level. Okay, it is a good comparison between centralization and decentralization. You can make out with this comparison the scope of centralization and decentralization. Bottom level employees absolutely have no authority, and as you go on the top, authority increases. Whereas in decentralization, much of the authority is delegated to the lower level managers, and even to the floor level employees has some authority. That is why it is accepted widely. That is why most of the large organization, they used to follow decentralization. Now let us discuss one of the most important things, that is what we call it as empowerment. What is empowerment? The concept of empowerment you need to know in organizing. Empowerment is a form of decentralization that involves giving subordinates substantial authority to make decisions. Under empowerment, managers express confidence in the ability of employees to perform for a high level, and it boosts motivation. Empowerment is nothing but It is a form of decentralization, giving more authorities to the lower level employees. Empowering the employees, sometimes we call it as an empowering the employees, giving more power to the employees. Opposite of empowerment is what? Powerlessness. What is powerlessness? Powerlessness is a kind of punishment. In some organization, powerlessness is a tool at the managerial level punishment. Thinning out authority is powerlessness. If a manager is having narrow authority, the other manager is punishing him. Taking away evaluation from employees from a manager's authority is a powerlessness. For example, general manager is taking the authority of department manager. Mr. Department Manager, this year you cannot evaluate your employees. What is this? This is thinning of the authority. This thinning of authority is nothing but general manager is giving punishment to the department manager. That is why we need to know what is empowerment. There are certain elements of empowerment. Each and every organization where they are following decentralization, they need to boost empowerment. They need to encourage empowerment. To encourage empowerment, an organization need to follow 4 important elements. Those elements are participation, innovation, access to information, and accountability. What is participation? Employees must be actively and willingly engaged in their jobs with a want to improve their work process and relationship. If the manager is asking the employees to participate, it will boost empowerment. It will increase empowerment. Participation is very much necessary. Another important element is innovation. Employees must be given permission and encouragement to innovate and not to stick to the old methodology. If the manager is encouraging the employees, let us innovate something, give me some ideas, I will accept the idea if it is beneficial to everybody, and these ideas are accepted, respected, it also boosts empowerment. Another important elements of empowerment, access to information. Managers, they need to provide more and more information. If a person is having more and more information about his company, he can deliver more good. Employees at every level should make decisions about choosing information pertaining to the job performance, so on and so forth. If I am not having any information about my own department, about my own company, I will be handicapped. So providing more and more information is also another element of empowerment. The third one is accountability. Employees' accountability for their actions and results achieved. When there is an empowerment, when the manager is empowering someone else, at the same time, he need to have what you call accountability also. How we implement empowerment? Implementing empowerment. Organizations take several steps in implementing empowerment. Sometimes the present organization structure is not compatible for making employees more empowerment. In such a case, we can restructure it. Restructure organizational unit to be smaller, less complex, and less dependent on the units for decision making and actions. Sometimes organization restructure will be there just to give more powers to the employees to make the empowerment successful. This is one of the way we can implement. Another, minimize the number of organizational rules. More rules in the organization, more rigidity. You need to have flexibility for proper empowerment. If you want to empower the employees, we need to have some relaxations. We need to minimize the rules and regulations. The process time will be lesser if you have empowerment. If you have more rules, the process time will be more. Emphasize on pro empowerment attitude and personal accountability in the organization. Everybody in the organization, all the levels of managers, they need to be pro empowerment. There should be a culture of empowering the employees. Some organizations, they have this best of the best culture of empowering the employees. Some organizations, they don't have. They will suffer. Provide education and training for personal improvement. Giving more training, more education, more training, more scholarship. Some of the companies are giving scholarships. They are giving a lot of facilities. They can go for higher educations. They can go for master's degree. They can go for doctorate degree. And the company is giving them salary maybe for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. When they return back, they will be given key positions. So this is an excellent example of empowerment. Parity principle. This principle is related to delegation. It states that authority and responsibility must coincide. Managers must delegate sufficient authority to enable subordinates to do their job, and at the same time, subordinates can be expected to accept the responsibility only for those areas within their authority. This means authority and responsibility should match. For example, a bank manager is authorized to give personal loan up to $5,000. He should not be extremely happy and start giving loans to Tom and Jerry. When he disburses the loan, it is his responsibility to recover it in a timely fashion. Authorities is flowing from top downward and responsibility flows from bottom up. Why some managers are reluctant to delegate? A good manager is a good delegator. For that reason, managers should learn how to delegate. But still some managers are reluctant to delegate because of the following reasons. Number one, they have a fear complex that subordinates will fail in their assignments. Number two, they believe that it is easier to do the task oneself. For an experienced manager, it is an easy to finish subordinates' job sometimes very quickly. Some managers, they have fear that subordinates will look too good. Some managers think if subordinate looks good, it may endanger his or her position in future. It is human attraction to power. This is human tendency. Some managers believe doing more is more powerful. Comfort in doing the task of the previous job held. Most of the managers who work in the lower position and they become the managers, they feel doing the job of the lower positions they were before, it is very much comfortable for them. Preconceived idea about employees. Managers used to have some misconceptions about the employees. Sometimes managers do not want to believe subordinates. For that reason, they do not want to delegate. They have reluctancy to delegate. Desire to set the right example. Some managers think he himself is Mr. Perfectionist. For that reason also, many managers, they do not want to delegate. Steps in delegation. As I told you, a good manager is a good delegator. He need to learn how to delegate. While delegating also, he need to follow some management principles that also we are discussing in the following slides. First, let us discuss the steps in delegations. Analyze how you spend your time. First of all, a manager need to have good time management skills. He has to analyze his time, in which task he is spending more time, in which task he is using less time, whether the time he is using for a task, that can be delegated to his subordinates. Analyze how you spend your time. Decide which task can be assigned. He need to make a list of the task A, B, C, D, something like that. Maybe A is very important, that is needed by his own manager. Those things he should not delegate. Maybe the routine tasks he can make a list. Okay, this I can delegate to Mr. X, this I can delegate to Mr. Y, this I can delegate to Mr. Z. Decide who can handle each task. It is a manager's skills to find out which person will do the task perfectly. Delegate authority. While delegating the task, he need to delegate authority also. Not only he has to delegate authority, he has to create a responsibility. The person to whom he is delegating authority, he should be responsible. He need to have an obligation. He should be accountable for that particular task. Control delegation. Finally, he need to control the delegation. That means whatever the task he is delegating, he has to see or he has to oversee whether everybody is delegating properly or not. Sometimes he change the delegation also after evaluation, after controlling, after evaluation, he can change the delegation maybe after 6 months. When a manager is delegating, he need to follow certain principles. One of the most important principle, we call it as an exception principle. Exception principle, it states that manager should concentrate on matters that deviate significantly from normal and let subordinates handle routine matters. That means manager need to focus on the very important task that is very much required by his manager in a timely fashion. Whereas the other routine activities, less urgent activities, he can delegate to subordinates. The idea behind exception principle is that manager should not concentrate on those matters that their subordinate can do it. For example, the routine activities, subordinates, they are best in doing the routine activities. He should not waste his time in doing routine activities. Relating to delegations, we need to know another important vocab, what we call it as micromanagement. What is this micromanaging? Every decision that have been delegated to subordinates made by superiors. If a manager is policing the day-to-day affairs of the subordinate in decision making, it is referred to as micromanagement. It is just opposite of delegation. These two are opposite. Micromanagement means after delegation, he should not be policing the day-to-day activities. He should not monitor it. He need to have faith on the subordinates. Once again, he should not waste time in micromanaging. That is another principle of what you call delegation. Another most important principle about delegation as well as organizing, unity of command. What is this unity of command? Unity of command need to be understood by management students as well. It states that an employee should have one and only one immediate manager. Biblically, it is proved no person can serve two masters. It is a very old ancient saying. No person can serve two masters. Or sometimes we say no person can wear two hats at the same time. That is why whether you are working as a manager or subordinate, you need to know organizational chart and where you are fitting in. This problem happens when manager make requests to employees who do not work directly for them. This is sometimes we call as exploitation of resources. So in organizing, one of the principle we need to follow unity of command. Scalar principle, this is also relating to what you call the organizing. Scalar principle states that authority in the organization flows through the chain of manager, one link at a time, you can make out with the diagram here, ranging from the highest to the lowest rank. This is also referred to as chain of command. The scalar principle is based on need of communication and unity of command. Scalar principle avoids chaos and confusion from one to another. This is very much required for accountability purpose also. Another most important principles of organizing, span of management. Span of management, also called as span of control. It is a number of subordinates a manager can effectively manage, also referred as span of control. Traditionally, it is proved that no superior can supervise directly the work of more than 6 subordinates. Tall organizations used to have narrow span of control, and flat organization used to have wider span of control. However, it depends on the complexity, proximity and variety of job and quality of managers and subordinates. It depends on the quality of managers. Some managers, they can have more span of management. For example, the manager is having good skills in management, he can have bigger span of management. Like this, if a manager is lucky to have very faithful and effective and efficient subordinates, he can have wider span of management. Not only that, it depends on the complexity. If the job is very complex and each and every steps to be monitored by the manager, such as research and development, he can have narrow span of management. Proximity also plays a very important role in span of management. For example, a manager is sitting in one building and the subordinates are housed in another building. So in such a case, close monitoring is very difficult. He need to have narrow span of management or span of control. For example, traditionally, you might have seen traditional officers were there that used to be housed in a big hall like a conference room. There you will find 20 people are working with one manager. Sometimes in some of the organizations, company secretaries, the company secretary staff used to be 20 or 24. Company secretary is sitting like a master in the room. Proximity, he can see to it who is doing what. In such a case, if the proximity is, the subordinates are very near to him face to face, he can have more span of management. Another most important thing that we are going to discuss in organizing work, that is workplace changes in the organization. We are discussing under 3 broad headlines: flexi time, job sharing, telecommuting or work from home. Flex time allows employees to choose and set their own schedule as agreed by the employer. It has several advantages and little disadvantage. Some of the advantage of flex time: it allows accommodating different styles and schedules. It avoids rush hours and results in less absenteeism and tardiness. From the employer's viewpoint, flex time can provide an edge in recruiting and also retaining hard to find qualified employees. Organizations with flex time schedules have reported an average increase in productivity, improved recruiting and retention. One of the disadvantages raised by the employer is that it creates communication problem and communication and coordination problems for employees, supervisors and managers. Another workplace changes in the organization you are seeing at many places. We call it as job sharing. In job sharing, two or more part-time employees share the job of a full-time employee. It has also many advantages and little disadvantages. Job sharing especially attractive to people who want to work but not full-time. There are many people, particularly aged employees, they want to work only part-time, not they want to work full-time. It is good for them. It is just like a win-win situation. Employees is also having certain benefits and employer used to have more benefits. Benefits are usually prorated between the part-time employees. The benefits or the salary or the perks, it is prorated on the basis of hourly basis. From the employer's point of view, cost to the company is comparatively very less as the company saves a lot of expense such as on medical facilities, housing facilities, education of children as compared to the direct employees. In case of direct employees or the employees who are on the payroll, for them it is mandatory as per the regulations of that particular country. They have to pay medical facilities, medical benefits for the self and the family. They need to give housing facilities, education facilities to the children, so on and so forth. This cost to the company can be saved to larger extent in case of job sharing. One of the disadvantage is that it lacks commitment of the employee to the job. Part-time employees, they don't have more commitment as compared to the full-time employees. Then another important thing about the workplace changes in the organization, that is telecommuting or work from home. Either you call it as telecommuting or you can call it as work from home. Telecommuting is the process of working away from a traditional office. Now we term this as work from home. It has several advantages and some disadvantages also. It lowers turnover. That means you will not find many people are leaving the job because they are very much comfortable working from home. Less travel time. This is good for the company as well as the employees. Less travel time, avoiding rush hours, avoiding distractions at the office, being able to work flexible hours. Working from home is more flexible. They can have housing chorus as well as they can do the job also, and lower real estate cost for the employers. Employers, they need not hire expensive offices. There are certain disadvantages. Insurance concern relating to the health and safety of the employees working at home. Look here, what is happening? If there is an accident doesn't mean the road accident. Accident may happen in the workplace also. Maybe some person just working in the office, he may have electrical short circuit, or maybe if he is using unsafe equipment, there will be electrical hazard. If the person is working at the workplace, insurance companies, they can pay for the life insurance, group insurance and company insurance, corporate insurance, so on and so forth. If the person is working at home, many of the claims cannot be availed. Some state and local laws restrict just what work can be done at home. There are some states and the countries, they used to restrict this particular job can be done from home, this particular job cannot be done from home. As far as most of the IT jobs, can be done from home, whereas other jobs where we need to use machines and tools, mostly the operator's job in the industry, where the industry has to run 24 hours. Administrative jobs can be done from the work from home. IT jobs can be done from work from home, whereas other jobs like jobs in the manufacturing industry, jobs in the marketing industry, and job in many other healthcare industries, that cannot be done from home. That's the end of this lesson. Please do subscribe to my video for further videos on management skills. Thank you and good luck.